Welcome back to Rich Words Music, where today we're looking at this. It's the Crazy Tube Circuit's Sidekick JR, and this is a 3-in-1 pedal including modulation, delay and reverb in a compact footprint, made in Greece, new for late 2023, and in this video I'm going to show you all of the sounds that you have access to with this pedal. We're going to hear it in as many different musical styles and settings as possible, and I'm going to tell you my thoughts and my opinions about the pedal too. But why Sidekick and why Sidekick JR? Well, the Sidekick comes from the fact that Crazy Tube Circuits think, quite rightly in my opinion, that a pedal like this, which is simple and easy to use despite looking complex from here, is actually a great thing for guitar players on the go who have a small rig or who play fly gigs or whatever, who need pro sounds at the tap of a button, don't want to dive into deep menus or anything like that. That's a Sidekick. It gets on and gets the job done. That's what this pedal is supposed to do. And why Junior? Well, in 2019, Crazy Tube Circuits released the Sidekick, which I guess we can now refer to as the Sidekick Senior. That had 3 different sounds in it as well. It also had a number of different functions that this pedal doesn't have, which were deemed superfluous after the original Sidekick pedal came out. So this is an improvement in every respect. It's smaller, so it's going to fit onto any pedal board. It's got improvements in the DSP, so all the sounds should be better, and it should have all the features you would need and none of the ones that you don't. So what I'm going to do first then is tell you about the specs and the features of the Sidekick JR, so we'll start with that now. You can see that we've got 3 beautiful strips, 3 colours here, and each one of them represents one of the 3 different kinds of effect in this pedal. The blue on my right here is the modulation side of the pedal, and that has 3 different modulation algorithms, 2 choruses and a flanger, and they're all based on iconic Boss modulation pedals of yore. So we've got a 3-way switch here that moves us between the 3 different sounds. Ensemble, flanger and dimension are the 3 that we've got at our disposal here. Now the ensemble mode is based on the legendary Boss CE2 pedal, the flanger mode is based on the Boss BF2 flanger, and the dimension mode is based on the Boss DC2. So if you're familiar with those pedals, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you'll just have to listen. But rest assured, we've got 2 classic chorus sounds and a classic flanger sound too. We just have 2 knobs to control the parameters of the modulation section. We have a depth control and a speed control. Now, the eagle-eyed among you will have also noticed a 3-way switch here. We'll get to what that does in a second. The middle column here is the grey one, and that controls the delay. We have 2 different kinds of delay in the Sidekick JR, either a digital or a pristine new tape delay, and you switch between the 2 modes by pressing the button here. There are 3 different controls in the delay section. We have a more control, which defines the volume of the delay repeats. We have a tail control, which controls how many repeats you have, and we have a time control, which controls the length of time between the repeats. And the pink side over here is the reverb side, and that's the most built out because it has 6 different algorithms, and they're accessible in 2 banks of 3. You switch between the 2 banks via this function here, and you switch between the reverbs via the switch here. So the 6 reverbs that we have are Shimmer, which has a beautiful octave up sort of a sound. You'll all know Shimmer. We have a Hall, which is a large hall-based sound. We have Exciter, which is Crazy Tube Circuit's own proprietary standout reverb algorithm, a huge, almost infinite sounding space. We also have a classic spring. We have a gated reverb sound, and we have a plate. So lots of 80s tinged reverbs here too. And we have 2 controls to manipulate the various reverbs here. We have a mix control, which controls how loud the reverb is compared to your dry signal, and we have an excite control, and this is a changeable parameter based on each of the 6 different reverbs. It'll do something different on spring compared to shimmer, for example, but basically it gives you more of whatever reverb effect you've got at any given moment in time. Now underneath you'll notice that we only have 2 switches on the pedal. This one is dedicated to the reverb control, this one is dedicated to the delay control, and you'll notice that there isn't a switch for the modulation control. That's because on a pedal this small they couldn't fit one on. So you've got 2 options here, and that's where this switch comes into play. Now if you're just using the pedal like this, you can flick this small switch either to one side or the other, and that will mean that you activate the modulation together with either the delay or the reverb, or you can have it in the middle and have no modulation. The choice is yours. However, if you'd like to get something like this, which is the Crazy Tube Circuit's XT additional foot switch, you can attach this via the side jack here, and you now have a dedicated foot switch for your modulation control. And I would really recommend that if you want to get your fullest use out of the pedal. So that is all of the controls and all of the features. You can see that we have top mounted jacks there too, and this is where you plug in the power. So very good for saving pedal board space again. And now what we're going to do is hear the Sidekick Junior in all of its facets. So I'm going to play a bunch of different riffs in as many different musical settings as I can, and we're going to hear every single one of the algorithms, the reverbs, the delays, and the modulations. And at the end, I'm going to play a loop into my Boss RC10 looper. We'll go through and twist all of the knobs and compare all of the settings and really hear how good this thing sounds. Now, Crazy Tube Circuits also tell us that this is a great pedal for people going with a very small rig. If you've got a fly rig, if you've only got your two hands to carry your rig into the venue, if you've just got limited space or you're playing on a tabletop or something, they recommend this as being the only thing that you need other than your amplifier, your basic signal. And with that in mind, I've gone for the smallest possible rig that I could today. I've got the Walrus Audio ACS1 with the firmware update added, of course, for 2023, and this is going to be our amp and our cab sim today. So what we're going to be hearing for the vast majority of the demo is going to be the Sidekick running into the ACS1, and that's going to be it. Just for a little bit of drive at the very end, I will add the Walrus Audio Fundamental Series drive pedal, but that's going to be it. It's going to be the smallest rig that I could possibly find here at my home to use for this video, and hopefully that's going to be a use case for a lot of you guys out there as well. The Walrus ACS1 is going to be running straight into my Focusrite Scarlett interface, which is going straight into Logic Pro X with no post-production done on the sounds or anything like that. So you're literally going to hear what I'll be hearing through my headphones. My guitar for today is going to be the Maybach Stradivari Superfly HSS model. So it's a Stratty type guitar with HSS pickup configuration, and we'll move between the pickups as much as possible. And that's basically it. Enough talk. It's time to play the Sidekick Junior now. There are so many sounds to get through. Take note of the timestamps down there. If you want to skip to the chorus part, if you want to skip to the delay or reverb parts, or if you want to skip to the loop, they are all notated down there so you can click through to the bits that most interest you. But let's hear the pedal now, and we'll speak in a bit more detail about it afterwards. Okay then, so that was pretty much every sound imaginable that you can wring out of the Sidekick Junior, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for your patience if you sat through anywhere near approaching the whole thing. Let me know in the comments which of the sounds you thought was best. Did you like the reverbs, the delays, or the modulations, or a combination of all three? Let me know in the comments, and I look forward to hearing what you guys think. But what I'm going to do now is tell you my opinions about this pedal, having had it in secret at home for the past few weeks and having played it pretty intensively in the meantime. The first thing that we need to talk about then, of course, is those sounds. And I think that the Sidekick Junior really hits a home run in every respect when it comes to sounds. It sounds professional, it sounds great, it sounds fantastic in every respect. I love all of the algorithms pretty much, and I'm most surprised about the modulation because that's not really something that I tend to use that often, but I was a very big fan of especially the two chorus sounds, and particularly the ensemble, which is the Boss CE2 in terms of inspiration. That was a lovely thick and rich chorus sound. I really like to have the depth up quite high and the speed down quite low, and that fattened up my tones no end. It brought about 80s sort of indie Smiths-esque tones for me, and I just really liked it, and that's something I need to get into a bit more. I thought that the dimension sound was also fantastic. A slightly different flavour to chorus for me sounded really cool too, especially with the speed pushed up a bit, and it gives you sort of a bumpy, wobbly sort of a tone, almost akin to something like a vibe sort of a pedal or a rotating speaker or something like that. So you can fake that with this side of the pedal. The effect in the modulation side that I used the least would have been the flanger, which I think sounds great too, but it's more of a subtle flangy sort of a tone. You don't get any of those massive woo aeroplaney sort of flanger sounds, which I associate with the effect from listening to bands like the Foo Fighters and songs like Breakout when I was a kid, that kind of thing. You can't get those kind of flange effects with this pedal. When we got to the delay side, I really like both of the delays. I find them to be very similar. Perhaps for me personally, I would have wanted a slightly older, dirtier, more wowy and fluttery tape than the pristine one that we have here, just to differentiate the two algorithms a little bit more, but they both sound fantastic. It's a simple bread and butter meat and potatoes delay. It does exactly what you need, exactly when you need it, and no more. And it will go up into self-oscillation, but this is not a crazy delay. It's simple to dial in, to leave it there, and make yourself sound better. And possibly my favourite side of this pedal is the reverb side. That definitely feels like the most built out, it has the most effects, it has the most different options, and it has the most differences between the different reverb algorithms available. So from going to a tiny spring that just adds a bit of thickness to a dry clean tone, all the way through to a massive exciter or a huge octave up shimmer sound, there's basically so many different reverb types in this pedal that anyone out there will find something that works for them. To go through my highlights of the reverb section, we'll start with the plate. I would say that that's just a big 80s plate sounding reverb with a bit of modulation in it. Really works well for many different genres. Never gets in the way of the clean tone either, but has a nice big decay if you want to use that too. So I really like that. The gated reverb is one that I personally don't really know how to use that well. It cuts it off when you stop playing, and that works for certain things, but for the kind of music that I play, I'm looking for something that decays a bit longer. So for me personally, not my thing, but it sounded great. That's all I can say about that one. When we got to the middle bit, we had the spring and the exciter. The spring reverb I think sounds fantastic for everything from a tiny spring to add a bit of thickness to a dry clean tone through to a more ambient spring sound. And it drips too. It really does do that nice boingy, springy sort of a sound if you want that as well. When we came to the exciter reverb, that is basically an infinite cavernous room. I think I timed it out at about a minute, the longest reverb decay time that I got out of the pedal. But it's wonderful for ambient tones and for thickening up any kind of post-rock or indie rock or anything like that that you'd want to do with it. On the right-hand side here, we had the hall and the shimmer. The hall is great. It's a nice, massive hall-sounding reverb. It's not the hugest thing in the world, but you've got the exciter for that. It's a bit modulated, and it sounds great for lots of the indie type of stuff that I do, and for ambient noodling as well. The shimmer is also fantastic for ambient stuff. It's that choir in the octave above. It sounds wonderful, it sounds thick, and it's never overbearing either. It's never over the top. It's the kind of effect that you want to use sparingly for certain effects, but when you use it, boy, people do notice it. So 6 very different reverbs, they all sound fantastic as well. One thing that I think is cool about this pedal is when you put the mix up all the way, you still hear some of your dry signal. That's something that I know some of you won't like, but for me personally, I see that as an advantage. And the excite knob here really does do what it says on the tin. The more you turn it up, the more exciting each of the 6 reverb algorithms sounds. But the real magic in this pedal is mixing up the effects together, and I really thought that using the reverb and the delay together was where it was at for me to get the biggest ambient tones to get the best indie rock sort of sounds, and that's where I feel personally most at home as a guitar player. One other thing that I really like about this pedal is the fact that none of the effects are massively overblown or over the top. It really is a true sidekick in that regard and not the main entertainment. And what I mean by that is you can have all three of the effects on simultaneously, turn the knobs up as much as you want them, and you're still going to get musical results. You're not going to get a massive wall of mush, a massive wall of noise, which some of you will probably want from your pedals, but there are other pedals that offer that. That's not what the Sidekick Junior is for. I found it to be 100% musical, 100% of the time. And I guess the final thing I want to mention when it comes to the sounds is that what you see is what you get here. Whenever you look down at it, the knobs are doing what they say they do. You can see what sounds you're getting out of it. There are no extra presets, there are no extra menus or anything like that. And I find that to be personally a very good thing for a pedal like this. If you want big menus to dive through, if you want MIDI functionality and all that, this is not going to be the pedal for you either. You're going to need to look elsewhere. So those were the sounds and some of the functionality ideals of the pedal. What about the other stuff that I like? Well, the price. I don't think I've discussed that yet in the video. This pedal will set you back €289. And off the top of it, that's not cheap for a pedal, of course. But if you consider the fact that you've got 3 nicely built out effects sections within this pedal, well, that's less than €100 per pop. And I think that's a pretty decent choice. And I don't think that you'd be able to find 3 separate pedals, a modulation pedal, a delay pedal, and a reverb pedal, independently for under €100 each that would match the quality and the tonal versatility of the Sidekick Junior. So in that regard, I think it's very, very good value for money. It's also built like a tank. This is not going to break. It feels fantastic. Made in Greece, nice quality. The knobs feel great. The switches feel great and all that. So no complaints there whatsoever. And I also like the fact that it's nice and compact. It's going to fit on pretty much any pedal board. Even if you add the extra foot switch to it as well, it's really a space-saving option for those 3 different sounds. Of course, this being 1 pedal instead of 3, it's also going to save you on power cables and patch cables too. So that's also something to think about. And finally, I like the looks of this pedal. Crazy Tube Circuits sort of relate it to the 80s in a way, and it does kind of look retro cool in that regard. And I really like the fact that they've released a special version of their XT foot switch for this one as well that features the same design. So that's a really nice little touch. So there's an awful lot that I like about the Sidekick Junior, but what about those things that I don't quite like so much? What would I change if I were personally allowed to be involved in the Sidekick Junior Mark II? Well, there's a couple of things that I would bring up, and I think one of them is a pretty obvious one. That is the fact that we have 3 effects in this pedal, but 2 foot switches, and that means that to get the full 100% functionality out of the pedal, you do need an extra little foot switch, like this cute Crazy Tube Circuits one here. This specific one does add 40 or 50 euros or dollars to the overall price of the pedal, and it is really worth having it, but it is an extra cost. Of course, you can use all of the 3 effects without an extra foot switch, just by using this switch here, but you have slightly more options if you do have an extra little foot switch like that one. So that's something that might be worth thinking about at some point. Should they include one for free and increase the price slightly? Should they make it just slightly wider and have 3 foot switches? I don't know. I do love the footprint of this pedal though, so probably the best way to do it is to have an extra foot switch like this one. Another thing that came up with this pedal when I was at the 42GS5 show was the fact that it doesn't have presets. Some people will see that as a disadvantage, but I personally think that's fantastic, and I love the fact that the knobs settings that you see here are what you actually hear with your ears. That works for me fantastically. It makes this pedal so intuitive and easy and simple to use. If you want massive preset building capabilities and full MIDI control and all that, there are amazing numbers of great other pedals out there for that, but that's not really what the Sidekick Junior is about. And the final thing that I think I would change, if I could, would be to add a tap tempo option to the delay part of the pedal, possibly with an additional extra foot switch or something like that. But I've become personally accustomed to having tap tempo on the delays that I tend to use, and that just really works for me personally, although your mileage may vary. So that's all of the stuff that I like and the stuff that I don't quite like so much about the Sidekick Junior. If you've been watching this video and kind of thinking, yeah, it sounds nice, but what else is out there? Well, there are a number of options, but if you want to look for something that has these 3 effects in it, well, you're probably going to have to look for something like a modeler. Something like the TC Electronic Plethora is going to work there, as is something like the Line 6 HX Stomp. There are a bunch of options out there in that regard, all at different price points with different options that they give you and so much more. Now, when it comes to single pedals that offer this kind of stuff, well, you could go for the original Sidekick Senior model. Otherwise, you're probably going to have to look at a dual delay reverb pedal, which is not going to have the modulation side. and there are a number of amazing choices out there, and I personally happen to own and can vouch for the fantasticness of the Source Audio Collider, the Earthquaker Devices Dispatch Master, which also has a really nice small footprint, and also the Keeley Caverns. There are others out there like the NUX Atlantic on a smaller price point, for example, that are great. And then there are some out-of-the-box choices. You could go for the Boss Space Echo pedals. You could go for something like the Line 6 DL4 Mark II delay, which has a bunch of delays in it and also a bunch of reverbs, and lots of them are modulated too. Then of course you could try and rebuild this pedal out of single pedals, but you're not going to get 3 of this quality with this sound performance and this versatility for under 300. At least I don't think so. If you know of 3 individual pedals that do that, let me know of them in the comments. But for me, if I was to build a 3 version of this pedal from 3 individual ones, I'd get something like the TC Electronic Hall of Fame, the TC Electronic Flashback, and a Boss Chorus pedal, and that's probably going to take me to at least 400, 450 or something like that. 3 great choices, and they will give you more options overall than this pedal, but if you want it all with one, then the Sidekick Junior is going to be your boy there. Just as a final side note before we finish off, I want to mention how impressed I am with the Walrus Audio ACS1. I've never really used this pedal before, but I decided to use it in conjunction with the Sidekick because Crazy Tube Circuits recommend this pedal for a compact rig. I don't think it gets more compact than that. I thought it sounded fantastic throughout, and I look forward to using this pedal a lot more in future. But anyway, in conclusion, with the Sidekick Junior, this is a fantastic pedal, and I can totally see it becoming my personal Sidekick Junior in future when it comes to my own board. You've got a bunch of different sounds here. They all sound fantastic. They sound fantastic on their own. They sound fantastic together. It's a really simple and easy to use pedal, and I love the fact that I can see exactly what settings I've got at any one time, so it works fantastically there. I love the reverbs, I love the delays, and I love the modulation sounds too, so there's nothing not to like about that. I really do think you need the extra little foot switch, so budget that in as well if you're going to be going for this pedal, but it's also built fantastically too. It looks really cool. It's not going to take up that much space on my board, and at the end of the day, I just think that it works really well for me. If you want massively over-the-top effects, if you want to lose your dry signal and just have full-on wet reverbs and delays running into oblivion, this is not the pedal for you. Go for the Strymon trifecta of goodness there if that's what you want. But if you're looking for a simple do-it-all solution in one small box that's great quality and it's going to sound the business, then the Sidekick Junior is the one that you should probably try out if you get the chance the next time you go to your local guitar store. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. If you're still here, thank you for wading through this long video with me and hearing all of the sounds, and there were a lot of sounds to get through in this video because this pedal can do so much. If you've got any more questions about the Sidekick Junior, let me know down in the comments. And if you are still here, it would make my day, it really would, if you wanted to give the video a like or maybe even sub to my little channel, because that really does help. But that's been it for today's video. I've been Rich for Rich Words Music, and this has been the Crazy Tube Circuits Sidekick Junior, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.